Hi, it's Anna here. Thanks for tuning in. So in today's video, I want to discuss the fact that the main goal of the path is to rebalance the energies within us. The light and the dark, the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. This is the path. This is the path to wholeness. So it's not about reaching a state of perfection. It's about reaching a state of balance and wholeness within that's deeply anchored in our humanity. And so when you look at it this way, you can see that there are people in the world who are leaning too much in the light aspect, and there are people who are leaning too much in the dark aspect. And of course, I'm making a huge generalization here. It's simply to weave a picture, a specific picture. When you look at it this way, you can see that different people require different approaches. The inner work is not going to be the same. So those of us who are leaning too much in our light aspect, we've been called the empath, the givers. We are the ones with an open heart and an open field. And of course, again, it doesn't mean that we don't have toxic traits to work through. Of course we do. But it is our dominant energy. Overall, we are leaning too much in our light aspect. And so the fact that we are born with this open heart and open field means that we tend not to have that inner protector activated, and it creates a lot of energetic leaks, and it hasn't actually worked out for us very well, right? Any person that has been very similar to me hasn't had an easy life. We tend to attract a lot of toxicity, a lot of abuse, but ultimately a lot of takers. A taker doesn't have to be a narcissist. A taker doesn't have to be manipulative and to consciously want to take from you. It's really, even disempowered people, deeply disempowered people who don't have anything to give will be taking from you, because at the end of the day, what we have is that we actually have a lot to give. We are deeply connected within, and we do have a lot to give. So what does it look like to be leaning too much in our light aspect? It looks like having rose-colored glasses on the world. And again, I just want to make clear that there are different levels and layers of this. I'm making a generalization. So we tend to have those rose-colored glasses not to really understand what we are dealing with. So this is where all the information on narcissism is extremely helpful for us. This knowledge is paramount, and I'm so glad that it's finally out there. It's actually freeing a lot of people because it's allowing us to finally see actually reality and what's going on energetically in dynamics. So that knowledge is protection in itself. But we tend to have a savior program that's very deeply embedded into us. And we tend to view love as self-sacrifice. It's a deep program and a deep belief. And so, one misconception about us is that we're actually not meek, we're not submissive at all, actually. We are very strong, but it's those high elevated traits of loyalty, trust, empathy, problem solving, collaboration, our need to really understand people's psychology, all of that, right, is what actually creates issues for us if we are not discerning in the energetic realm or the energetic dynamic of what's happening in our relationships. And we have zero issues to give, right? Like I said, we have so much to give. We can give and give and give. But the problem is that we tend to be so overly focused on the external that we give at the expense of ourselves. And then we tend to reach a state of burnout. We also have zero issues forgiving and forgetting. We can forgive and forget until, we basically are in a loop of abuse, right? We put boundaries, but then we tend to forgive and forget. Let people back in, and then it just basically it's like a vicious cycle. We just keeps repeating and repeating itself, and we tend to have an inability to hold on to bitterness and resentment. So overall, I know that it's been called a people-pleasing issue. I personally tend to see this as very surface level. and not really understanding the deeper aspect of the energetics and the deeper aspect of the belief system behind it. So what I tend to view it as is more of a fear of hurting others. This is a fear that's deeply embedded into us. And this fear actually will be felt once we actually start putting very strong and firm boundaries. Once we start bringing the attention back to us, bringing a level of self-centeredness and selfishness, which is actually all based on self-love, we will feel that fear. You will know that it was never really about people pleasing in the sense that you want to be liked, but actually a true fear of not hurting others. And that fear is very real. We haven't been modeled a healthy way of conflict. We actually have been hurt, a lot of us, through toxicity and abuse. So that fear cannot be minimized, and that fear will need to be worked through and pushed through. So on the other end of the spectrum, we have the ones who are leaning too much in the dark aspect. The far side of that, the extreme example of that would be the malignant narcissist. So these are people who tend to have a really lack of self-awareness, self-reflection, lack of empathy. It's all about self-centeredness, selfishness, all of that stuff. So you can see that for these people, the spiritual advice out there that's talking about coming back to the heart, opening the heart, having compassion for everyone, seeing others as ourselves, that's actually really helpful for them, because that's exactly what they need to be doing. For those of us who are leaning too much in the light aspect, this becomes an issue, because we tend to understand these concepts very naturally. We don't have an issue understanding all of that. And again, I'm making a generalization. It's always a good idea on this path to have a habit of coming back to the heart. But this is something we do very easily. And the problem for us is that on this path, we tend to latch onto this concept, right? Because we resonate deeply with them. And then they become aware of bypassing what we need to be doing, which is really reconnecting with that organic dark aspect of ourselves. And, this is the part of us that we fear the most. This is the part of us that we have the most resistance to. But this is actually the gateway out of what I call the matrix frequency, the pain and suffering frequency. On the map of consciousness, if you want to refer back to that video, you can see it's that bottom bit, right, in the pyramid. So this is what we need. We need a different approach. And we actually tend to have a bias towards the word dark. So by dark, I do not mean toxic. When I talk about reconnecting with this dark aspect of ourselves, first of all, I'm talking about an aspect of ourselves that's suppressed. So it's our biggest shadow. But also, I'm talking about empowerment. I'm talking about an inner protector. So what does this look like for us? It looks like, first and foremost, removing those rose-colored glasses to really fully understand what's happening energetically in our relationship dynamics. So this is where, again, I said the narcissism knowledge is extremely valuable. We need that. We need that because we have so much cognitive dissonance with this. I know it took me years to finally accept that I actually was going through emotional abuse in my long-term relationship. So this understanding is absolutely paramount and a very important step on the ladder for us. It's about understanding that you cannot bypass the dark to come to wholeness. You cannot get to the light by bypassing your darkness, your shadow. Because ultimately that's what you're coming to, right? A wholeness, a full reconnection with your soul, which is actually all light, right? But you need to balance those energies, the light and the dark, to come to this. And it looks like for us, finally focusing on you for a change, right? Like no longer looking externally, but bringing the focus back to us. So in that way, you can see that when you attract takers, it's really a reflection of what's lacking in you. It's a very empowering way to look at this, right? Because we can, on this path, we can get so locked into, blaming the other or just focusing on that knowledge of what the other is doing, which again, like I said, it's actually a step on the ladder, so it's very important to do it. But then we need to bring it back to us, like, what is this trying to show me? It's showing you what you are lacking. So there's a page of their book that you actually have to take. You need to come back to you. You need to start making room, time, space for you. And it will it will be very uncomfortable. It will make you feel like you are being selfish. It's not. You cannot give and give and give, and you know that because you've reached a state of burnout. You need to prioritize yourself. You need to prioritize self-love, self-care. And actually, when you come to a place of true self-love, you will no longer be able to tolerate breadcrumbs, toxicity. It will actually be felt viscerally in your body. And it's coming to an understanding that it's not our job to love and save everyone. That actually the idea that we have of love is faulty. True love is not enabling, it's not cuddling, it's not being a rehab center for people. True love is actually honesty. So when something doesn't feel good, actually speaking up and saying it. It's actually calling people out on their bullshit, allowing people to have accountability for their behaviors. That's true love. We need to get rid of the idea that love is self-sacrifice. I actually have no idea where this comes from, because even Jesus very openly was calling out the Pharisees on their bullshit, right? So in saying that, though, that fear of hurting others is very real for us. We feel it on the inside. But this path, the inner work process that we need to be doing, is to actually push through that fear and little by little, slowly practice, putting those boundaries, practice raising the intensity of those boundaries, because for a lot of us, that's the issue. We're not really cracking that code yet. And feeling that fear and feeling that guilt and releasing it. Every time you put a boundary with someone and it doesn't feel good, you actually releasing something inside of you. And that fear of becoming toxic is actually also very real, right? That fear of hurting others in one aspect is real also, because we haven't been modeled a healthy way of being assertive, a healthy way of having conflict and putting boundaries. But this is a trial and error, right? You try it. You will see when it's not working. And when your soul awakens you and you're thrown on this path, you will see that this is the biggest work that you need to do, because you will start attracting a lot of these opportunities to place those boundaries, to speak up. They won't go away. You will know that you have cracked it you might actually have to. You might be very surprised at the intensity that you need to bring to the table, like the intensity that comes behind your words. And I will be doing a lot more videos to explain that aspect. But you will know that you have cracked it when within a few months, once you've done that, your frequency has risen, your external reality will completely shift. You will no longer attract toxic people. The narcissist will disappear. And I'm actually also talking about people that you were stuck with, right? If you are co-parenting, for example. I've seen it happen in my life, and I'm still in disbelief about this. I thought I was stuck with this, but once the dark feminine came out, once I put those boundaries in a very strong way, because I actually was quite assertive my entire life, he had no choice to stay in my life but to shift. That's actually how it works. That's a frequency game. Everything that we are doing is about raising that frequency, and it will be reflected in your external reality. We hold so much power. And what I want to end with is that rebalancing those energies doesn't mean that you lose who you are. I mean, in many ways, it will feel like going against your nature at times, because that's the aspect of us that we have the most resistance to. But it's not about losing our empathy. It's not losing about those traits that I was talking about, right? It's about being more balanced and more picky about, who you're giving your energy to. Understanding that you bring so much to the table, and that, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have that energy matched on the outside, right? It's about becoming so much more full and whole and anchored in our field, that we no longer have our empathy weaponized against us. It's not about no longer having our heart weaponized against us. It's about becoming the tree that's really anchored and no longer flapping in the wind from all direction based on everything that's happening on the outside. And once you actually rebalance those energies within, you will also see it with what's happening at a collective level. You will no longer be pulled with what's happening out there in the media. Like, your energy will no longer be pulled in every direction. You will choose what you put your focus and attention to. You will choose where your emotion goes. It's not that you become a robot. It's not that you become emotionless or completely detached. It's more that you're in control of it. You're a lot more measured and balanced. And when I say you're in control of it, it's not a conscious decision. It's a state of being. So it actually naturally happens. It's an organic way of being. But it's so freeing. As someone who was such a deeply feeling woman that felt everything, and once I reconnected with my body and started feeling those energies on a much more subtle level, I could see where my energy was being pulled and leaking. And so this is what we're doing, right? We're taking our power back by rebalancing those energies within and coming to a place of wholeness. And by doing that, we actually become like a pillar of light. We actually become someone who's influencing through their energy and their frequency the world in a much more powerful way. This is the only thing we can control. We've tried to save people. We've tried to do it externally. It never works. That's not how it works. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope it will keep you focused on whatever's coming your way, to continue to put those boundaries, to continue to want more for yourself, to continue to understand that you need both the light and the dark to come to that place of wholeness. So I hope this is helpful. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.